everybody. So to kick it off, let's start with
local guys.
Yeah, somebody local. Is Steinhauser here?
Is Alex was going to be here?
I'm here.
Let's start with you.
You don't want me to ask you again because I asked this way back in February. Remember your first trip and how much news you made?
But you can ask it again.
I'll ask it. Why not? Just for old time's sake.
It is.
I mean, at the time you said you were going to spend a lot of time here in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
You have built up an impressive staff, no doubt about that. You're one of the leaders, but
And offices.
and you get big crowds when you're here. But again, some of your other rivals are spending a lot more time in this state, and I'm wondering if it's going to be a top priority going forward.
It is a top priority going forward, and that's why I'm here now. That's why I've been here for the last 2 days and spending time covering as much ground in the state as possible. It's a very important state. It's obviously an early state, and the people of New Hampshire, in my experience, are informed. They make me a better candidate. They give feedback on issues that not only impact the state, but it is one of the barometers of how the country is doing. Take, for example, the issue of the opioid crisis and the way it has affected and afflicted the state, but also the kind of leadership that has been here that shows a model for how the country should be approaching the issue. You look at issues, I just rolled out my environmental justice plan, my environmental protection plan, and one of the areas of focus that came out of many experiences I've had, including conversations here in New Hampshire, is about PFAS in the water and how that's impacting communities, impacting children. And that was one of the things that I had in mind when in the outline of my policy, I've indicated that I'm prepared to declare a clean drinking water emergency. And frankly, it is those experiences in New Hampshire that are what I have in mind when I say all over the country that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. Because, for example, on the PFAS issue, the issue of clean drinking water, it's about PFAS in the water, chemicals in the water. It's about children drinking out of lead pipes in other regions of the country. It's about in other regions of the country where the only source of drinking water for families is the wells they have in their backyard. Those wells which are being contaminated in many places because of the floods in those places and the bacteria that's building up. So, yes, I plan on spending and continuing to spend a lot of time in this great state,
Senator,
in the granite state.
Senator, are you concerned that you haven't, though, at this point, been able to gain much in terms of traction here?
I'm going to tell you, hang out with me. I'm seeing a lot of traction. We're seeing people showing up, from the beginning, standing in long lines in a snowstorm. Where at the events that we're holding, there is standing room only, and in some cases the fire marshal has had to say no more people can come in. To yesterday, where we're seeing hundreds of people show up. I was very honored to receive the kind of enthusiastic feedback that we've received here at the New Hampshire Democratic Convention. So I will tell you what I am experiencing on the ground tells me that we are earning the support of the people of this state. And because we are working hard, because I am paying attention to them and the issues that they have brought to me and the issues that they deserve will receive the attention of someone who intends to be president of the United States.
Okay, we're going to go over here to Jake.
Hey, Senator Harris, when we last spoke at Keene State, you said you'd get back to me on this one. So I want to ask you about executive orders and executive power.
Yeah.
So besides on gun control, a lot of your plans have folded in executive power if Congress will enact.
That's right.
How do you view it more broadly, particularly with criticism that the Trump administration and the Obama administration have gotten for what a lot of opponents have said sets a dangerous precedent for a kind of, overly interventionist executive branch?
Well, most of my career actually the majority of my career before I joined the United States Senate was as an executive. And what I know is that the people who we represent, and the American people, want that their elected leaders are going to get things done and not just give pretty speeches and grand gestures. And as far as I'm concerned, on some of the longest standing issues that are challenging our country, problems that have not been fixed by the United States Congress, if the United States Congress continues to fail to act, absolutely I'm prepared to take executive action, and that will be no different than previous presidential administrations. But the way we have constructed the United States government endows in the President of the United States the ability to exercise per executive action, and I will do that.
Senator, can you talk a little bit more about how you're going to change that or transfer that enthusiasm that you're feeling into sort of better poll numbers in the next phase of the campaign?
I mean, I have to tell you, if I listened to polls, I would have never run for my first office, and I wouldn't have won my first office if I listened to those polls. So the issue of polls, for me, you know, depending on the poll, the sample size, the day of the week, I'm not riding polls. Like everybody else in the pundits can ride polls, I'm not on that roller coaster. I am working hard. We are steady. I don't get high with the polls. I don't go low with the polls. The reality is, my measure of the outcome of our work and the success of our work is based on what we're seeing, what we just saw out there in this convention center. And what I see when I am going to each one of these events during the course of it here in New Hampshire, the last 48 hours. That's how I gauge our success and traction.
Senator,
Senator,
what's the first thing you will win?
Senator,
We'll go right.
Senator, have you found it difficult to sustain momentum following these debates? And on top of that, are you doing anything differently as you're preparing for this next one?
I'm telling you, I'm feeling very good about where my campaign is. We are opening offices around the country with a particular emphasis, of course, on the primary states. So they are here in New Hampshire. We have offices in South Carolina and Iowa, in Nevada. We are seeing, again, the same kind of response when we are doing events in those places, the same kind of enthusiasm. We have a whole program we call Camp Kamala, where we are inviting volunteers to go through a training, because we have so many people who are part of our campaign who have never actually been a part of a campaign before. And so we are training them on how to help us organize folks and get them registered to vote. And we're seeing hundreds of people sign up. So I'm seeing the momentum. And I'm excited about it.
But Senator,
Okay, we're gonna take one more.
Senator,
I'd love to ask you about
who's
gender.
Right here.
I've talked to a lot of New Hampshire voters who say it's time for a woman to be president,
It is.
and they support you. But at the same time, they also say that they have a fear of a general election where it's Trump versus a woman, and they're worried about a woman's candidacy.
Yeah, and I've heard that before. Look, I was the first woman to be district attorney in San Francisco, and I was the first woman of color to be district attorney of any county in a state of 40 million people as the top law enforcement officer. I heard that when I ran for Attorney General of California to become the head of the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice, where there had never been a woman or a person of color. And when I was elected Attorney General of California, I was the only person of color, and woman of color, therefore, in the United States. I've heard that my entire career. And I think that there is sometimes a difficulty and maybe even an inability for folks to imagine what they've not seen before. Doesn't mean it's not possible. And what I've known my entire career is that people want that sense of being able to know that we're willing to fight to achieve what has never happened before. And let me make it very clear in terms of my point. This is something that inspires not only women, not only people of color, but men of every age who I see show up at our events because they're excited about it too.
Senator,
That's
yesterday,
all we've got time for. Thank you all.
Thank you guys.